think my first lesson to Adam Ant was, right, Adam, these are the 3 ingredients for any pop cultural success, which I know, looking at you, you desperately want. Okay, first, subversion, understand what that is and have that as a major ingredient in your look, your behavior, and what you write and what you produce in form of music. 2, have heaps of style. You're going to need it to seduce, to be someone that even anybody wants to stand next to. You've got to have style because you need grace and charm to attract people to this subversive idea. And then, Adam, you're going to have to be very, very sexy to sell it. You work on those 3 S's. Subversion, style, sex. Sex, style, and subversion. Those 3 ingredients, in any way you want to mix them.
That's a success.
Whether it's in art, in fashion, in music, or a synergy of all. You wipe everything out. Yeah, that's it. That's what it takes.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say thanks to my main man, Mr. McLaren, y'all. He's the one that made this.
And I think the music industry didn't understand that punk in itself was as impactful as the invention of the motor car.
Sure.
It was as impactful as any Pablo Picasso painting, and it took the culture forward and became a true expression of probably all the original intentions of an outlaw culture better known as rock and roll.
Sure.
There are 2 words that sum up the culture today. One is authenticity, and the other is karaoke. And most artists today spend their entire lives trying to authenticate a karaoke culture, trying to make it true somehow. But you've got to be a hell of a magician to do that. That's the way it is. That's what we are. We're in this karaoke culture. We cannot get out of it. But there is an undeniable thirst for the authentic. And why? Why? Why do we want something still authentic when the karaoke culture seems so acceptable? I think it's because there's this undeniable urge inside every human being to mess up. I think we like sometimes to have chaos because chaos is sexy sometimes. We like things going wrong. We like it because we can't help the imperfections is what makes us excited.
Sure.
I always learnt one thing in France when I lived there during the Sex Pistols debacle, and that was they liked wine that was imperfect. Not perfect like Californian wines often are. Not wines that explode in your mouth. They like these little imperfections. They like the inconsistencies because it's the inconsistencies that gives the wine its personality.
Sure.
Ultimately, the Sex Pistols had to implode. You couldn't survive. We knew we were going to fail. It was just a question of how long have we got?
And how spectacular can you fail?
And how magnificent and brilliant and flamboyant you're going to make that failure. Yeah, how you're going to really do what people wouldn't expect you to do.
Right.
Because when most people are confronted with the notion of failure, they immediately want to stop and figure out how they can become successful. They don't want to promote failure. They don't go the other way. And all I'm saying is the trick is to fail magnificently.
Sure.
And
That's
then
the true
you will
success.
have a real success.
Yeah,
that's the key.
Lift up and down, and then go twisting.
Sid Vicious was about the only one that was able to do that because he started out in the audience and then became...
Then got on stage.
Then got on stage. So he was very special, and he really, therefore, iconically, in a sense, epitomized that punk culture that was so much celebrated with this DIY aesthetic and attitude. He epitomized that because he'd managed to cross the bridge. But he was lucky, and then sadly not so lucky because he died of you know, of a really tragic and misguided drug overdose. But I thought he was a phenomenon. I think he was one of the few, actually, out of that group, probably the only one, because he wasn't creative in the sense. He reminded me of Elvis Presley. I always thought he was the Elvis Presley of punk, because he didn't need to write any songs. He could just sing anybody's song, and we proved that when we produced My Way, which was, you know, some old ditty sung wonderfully by Frank Sinatra, written by some old pop maestro, Paul Anka, originating from Claude Francois, the French pop composer. It was like an evergreen, as they call them. This evergreen song, revitalized and reinvented by Sid, was turned into like a punk rock anthem.
Yeah.
He changed the lyrics. He looked to sort of disgrace or criticize John, his friend, once upon a time, but at that point no longer. He did it in a very triumphant, celebratory and very punk manner, and I think my contribution was to make him shoot his mother at the end. I found my way back to London and into the arms of Adam and the Ants.
Right.
And Vivian, who had subsequently at that time been nestling thoughts of recreating clothes made from patterns out of this 18th century pattern book that she just simply adored. And of course, being that they were 18th century, they took on a certain look that had a kind of ethnicity, but also, dare I say it, it was when I saw this huge shirt. It was so big. It just reminded me of Errol Flynn in Captain Blood. This piratical look of this shirt that spun around my head.
It's a very romantic look.
Yeah, and that image, and this Burundi beat, and this idea of Africa, and this thought of getting away from the, I suppose what I thought was the kind of, the trap of Anglo-Saxon culture, this 4/4 metronomic beat. I felt it was a bit like a noose around your neck. I didn't no longer feel it was liberating at all. I felt there was something sexually more attractive about these ethnic beats. I thought they were more colourful. Margaret Thatcher had just come to power.
Right.
The socialist government was out.
Everything was very grey.
Everything was grey. People were being forced to go back to work. The idea of being a romantic punk was being sent to the outer suburbs, a bit like Montauk.
Right.
And there was a sense that in order to reinvent that outlaw spirit that punk had so gallantly continued from the initial days of rock and roll, you needed to create something not black, but very colourful.
You were expelled from a number of our colleges, am I right in saying?
I wasn't expelled. That's quite a harsh word.
Well, I'm looking for the rebel.
You weren't. I know, but you wasn't expelled.
Okay.
You just ran out of time, and you had to move on. The problem with me was the fact that I never wanted to leave.
Right.
I didn't see the point in entering the real world. It all looked dreadful out there. There was something very cosy and comforting about the four walls of an art school where you watched all the best-looking girls enter the college each semester.
All over the world, They skip and jump through them. They might break and they might fall, but the guy...
I would spend hours in this shop redecorating it, reconsidering it, just creating one spectacle, one painting.
So it was an artwork.
Yeah, it was an artwork. And naturally, after you finish the painting, you want to start a new painting. So I just went back to Vivian and she let me do that, bless her heart. She was absolutely focused on the sewing machine. She was a dedicated seamstress and an extremely creative and inventive one. And she learned how to put clothes together. I came from a very major fashion background. My grandparents, my parents, they were all in fashion. I grew up, I breathed fashion. I was surrounded with fabrics. So the last bloody thing I ever wanted to be in was fashion, unless it could be anti-fashion. Sure. And so I found a way, through my complete belief in pop culture and its kind of underbelly of something more seditious and more culturally subversive, with fashion, that I could turn into some kind of installation that would basically fulfill this idea of turning art into some kind of action. Right. And the ultimate evolvement of that was into the shop called Sex, which led finally to a scene that literally was born in that store that was ultimately labeled punk.
All you gotta do is start. Forget about pushing your car. I will make you step out.
Because I never forgot the greatest moment for me in punk, as someone working in the fashion side of it in my store, was having to open that store with a hangover on a Saturday morning to all these suburban mums who'd driven from as far away, 100 miles away from Bristol, with little Johnny, little Billy, little Pat, little Jim, and so on, all standing outside my store. And I'd arrive, maybe about 11:30 in the morning. But, why is this store not, why wasn't you open? We've been here since 9:30.
I think I was one of those people.
We've been here, and can you open? I said, okay, well, that's too, well, we you've got to hurry up, we've got a train to catch, I've got to drive back to so-and-so. And then suddenly I'd open this store, and all these women would come in, and I'll never forget, they used to put their hands over, hurry up, Johnny, buy something, I don't want to look at anything, I can't bear being in this shop very long. And there would be Johnny, who was about, 12 years of age, and he'd be trying to reach up to the rack and pick down this t-shirt which would say, fuck your mother, and don't run away, punk. And it would be this guy fist-fucking, some other guy, and it'd be this incredible, hardcore etching of a gay orgy. Or he'd pick another one, a sort of pair of tit clamps, and I'd say, no, they're not. They're not going to work for you. You can have this. This is a cock ring, but I'm not sure your penis is quite as big. I'm not sure this is going to fit you well. And it was extraordinary. And these women were saying, oh look, I don't want him to buy this. Buy something else, Johnny. You sure you want this thing? Mum, I'm going to have this t-shirt. I like it.